Is Lady ATV. Lady Adaise. That's what the A stands for, anyways. So I've been waiting for people to join so we'll continue our book from where we start. You know, Woman at a point zero. We need to continue from where we start to see what happened next. Yes. We're still at the point where she was telling her story to someone who came to visit her. Yeah, that's page 25. So I've been able to read the page. Let me say, her friend was asking her if she has been in love before. She was like, no, she hasn't been in love before. So for a moment, she paused. And thought about her when she was still in the village with Mohammed. What normally happens between them, but she can't really differentiate if that was love or not, because at that point in time she doesn't really know anything. You understand? She doesn't really know anything. She can't say if that's love or not. So this is still her story. So that's it. Got to turn this phone off. So let's continue. You say she was telling Wafaya she has not been in love before and she doesn't know what being in love looks like, you know. So Wafaya was like telling her, well, she looks like someone who has been in love before. Part of her tells that. But she being that she hasn't been in love before, so she doesn't really know if she's actually in love or not. She doesn't know what it feels like to be in love. So even when Wafaya told her that, she was like, I don't know what love is. So, say, my eyes remained wide open, staring into the darkness. Lonely, distant, half-forgotten image started to emerge from the night. I saw Mohammed lying on a bed of straw under the open shelter. The smell of the straw cracked my nose, and the smell of the straw cracked my nose. The smell of the straw crept up my nose, and the touch of his fingers moved over my body. My whole body shuddered with a faraway yet familiar pleasure arising from the same unknown source. From some indefinable spot outside my being, and yet I could feel it somewhere in my body. A gentle pulsation beginning like a tender pleasure and ending like a tender pain, something I tried to hold on to touch if only for a moment, but it slipped away from me like the air, like an illusion or a dream that floats away and is lost. I wept in my sleep as though it was something I was losing now. Wow. What is your name? Good afternoon, sir. My name is Grace. Yes, my name is Grace, but here I do actually do TV. So we're trying to tell a story of the title of the book is actually A Woman at Point Zero. We're trying to tell a story of a woman named Fadis. You understand this book, what she went through. Actually, she was in prison. Yeah, she was in prison for over time. She was sentenced to death. So at that point in time, she never wanted to see anybody until she was being executed. Yeah, she was sentenced to death. So as time goes on, there's this researcher, a medical doctor and a psychiatric doctor who normally do research on prisoners. They came to see her at first. She tried her best but couldn't meet with her. But as time goes on, with so many perceptions, Feders finally allow her to see her because both are female. So now, this is Fedo's story that we are talking about here. Yes. So Fedo started telling the doctor her story, what led her to prison, how she murdered person. But at first, nobody actually believed that she's a murderer. Yes, because she doesn't seem like a murderer. Yes, she doesn't seem like a murderer. So she was like trying to tell the doctor what actually led to the murder. So we're still in Fedo's story. It's a very, 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 very emotional one. Yes, very emotional, and it's heartbreaking in a way, but very, 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 very interesting. There are so many lessons to learn here, for, as a woman, as a man, young, old, too many lessons to learn from the book. So let's continue. The nights at school were long and the days were even longer. I would finish studying my lesson hours before the last night bell was rung. So I discovered that the school had a library, a neglected room in the backyard with its shelves falling to pieces and books covered in a thick layer of dust. I used to wipe off the dust with a yellow cloth, sit on a broken chair under the light of a feedable lamp, and read. And read. I developed a love of books, for with every book I learned something new. I got to know about the Persians, the Turks, and the Arabs. I read about the crimes committed by kings and rulers, about war, people's revolutions, and life of revolutionaries. I read love stories and love poems, but I preferred books written about rulers. So she's talking about when she was still in school. I read about a ruler whose female servants and concubines were numerous as his army, and about another whose only interest in life were wine, women, and whipping his slaves. A third cared little for women, but enjoyed wars, killing, and torturing men. Another of these rulers loved food, mourning and hoarding riches without end. Still another was possessed with such an admiration for himself and his greatness, and for him, no one else in the land existed. There was also a ruler so obsessed with plots and conspiracy that he spent all his time destroying the fact of history and tried to fool his people. I discovered that all these rulers were men. So these are the books she was reading back in secondary school. So she was still, this is the story that she was telling the researcher who came to see her in the prison before her execution time. So I discovered that all these rulers were men. What they had in common was avarice, avarice and distorted personality, a never-ending appetite for money, sex, and unlimited power. There were men who sought corruption on the earth and plundered their peoples, men endowed with loud voices, a capacity for persuasion, for choosing sweet words and shooting poison arrows. Interested, right? Thus, the truth about men, the truth about them were revealed only after their deaths. And as a result, I discovered that history tends to repeat itself with a foolish obstinacy. Oh, welcome to my live chat. So we're still reviewing this book. We're still reading this book to learn a whole lot. Titled Women at Point Zero, Woman at Point Zero rather, Woman at Point Zero. Newspapers and magazines were delivered to the library regularly. I got into the habit of reading what was written in them and looking at the pictures, and so quite often I will stumble on the picture of one or other of these rulers as he sat with the congregation attending Friday morning prayers. Interesting. There he sat opening and closing his lids, looking out through them with an expression of great humility, like a man stricken to his depths. I could see he was trying to deceive Allah in the same way as he deceived the people. Can you deceive God? Funny enough, no, you can't. Around him were gathered numbers of his rotins, nodding their heads in agreement and with admiration for everything that was being said, invoking Allah's blessing and his eternal majesty in subdued guttural tone, rubbing their hands one against the other, observing what went on around them with worry, doubting, steady eyes, ready to pounce, full of aggressiveness that touched on itself. I could see them as they prayed ardently for the souls of the nation's mates who had lost their life as a result of war, famine, or pestilence. I would follow the heads going down and the buttocks coming up, fat rounded buttocks swollen with flesh and fear. When they pronounced the word patriotism, I could tell at once that in their hearts of hearts they feared not Allah. Wow. And at its back of their mind, patriotism meant that the poor should die to defend the land of the rich, their land, for I knew that the poor had no land. Are you a born again? What do you define a born again as, Pastor? Pastor, what do you define born again as? I just want to get your definition of born again. Okay, let's continue as I read. When I became bored with reading history, which seemed unchanging, bored with the same old stories. Pastor, I'm still waiting for your definition of born again. Because my definition of born again and your definition of born again might be different, might differs. So I don't really know what you seem to have born again. Oh, you said born again. Okay, let's continue. I will go down and sit in the playground all alone. Often the night will be dark, without a moon shedding its light from above. The last bell would have pealed out its last note a long while ago, leaving a deep silence behind. Around me, all the windows will be shut, and all the lights will be out. Yet I would continue to sit in the dark alone and wonder about many things. What will become of me in the coming years? Will I go to the university? Would my uncle agree to send me there for my studies? Okay. One night, his teacher saw me as I sat there for a moment. She was frightened by the sight of a mass that did not move. Yet looked like a human shape sitting in the dark. Before coming nearer to me, she called out, "Who is sitting there?" In a weak, scared voice, I replied, "It's me, Fergus." When she had drawn nearer, she recognized me and seemed surprised, for I was one of the best girls in her class. And the best girls used to go to bed as soon as the night bell rang. I told her I was feeling a little tense and had not been able to fall asleep, so she sat down next to me. Her name was Iqbal. She was short and plump with long black hair and black eyes. I could see her eyes looking at me, observing me despite the darkness. Every time I turned my head, they were after me, holding on to me, refusing to let me go. Even when I discovered my face with both hands, they seemed to see through them into my eyes. Without warning, I burst into tears. Can imagine. Such a pity. The tears ran down my face behind my hands. She took hold of both my hands and lifted them away from my face. I heard her say, "Fergus, Fergus, please do not cry." Interesting story. So let me cry, I said. "I've never seen you cry before. What happened to you?" Nothing at all. See, sometimes I feel this way. Sometimes, I don't know, it just happens to everybody. I think it's a national phenomenon. Like, when you just sit like this, you think about life. Think about the past, you think about the present, think about the future. You ask yourself, what is really going on? Where will I be in the next few coming years? What's my... you don't understand. I perfectly understand failures, honestly. Like, what is my aim in life? What am I here for? What's my mission? Ask yourself too many questions that only you can ask and answer yourself. But it's fine. Let's continue. Impossible. Something must happen. No, nothing has happened, Miss Eko. There was a note of surprise in her voice. Are you crying for no reason at all? Pastor, you're asking me if you have given my life to Jesus and I've stopped sinning. Pastor, should I ask you one question? What do you define sin as? What do you define sin as? Are you trying to tell me that you're a saint? You don't sin as a human? Oh, you just come into my live chat to know if I have stopped sinning, because I really want to understand what to define as sin. Pastor AK, are you trying to tell me that you're not a sinner, you don't sin, that you've not committed sin ever since you become a pastor? Because it's very interesting. I'm ready to leave this book to talk about it, honestly, because it's really becoming interesting. Anyways, let's continue while I wait for your question. So, as you are now, Pastor, you're not a sinner. You don't sin. Wow. Interesting. Okay, bring it up. Okay, she remind me. Okay, I do not know what the reason is. Nothing new has happened to me. She remained by my side, seated in silence. I could see her black eyes wandering into the night, and the tears welling up in them with a glistening light. She tightened her lips and swallowed hard, and suddenly the light in her eyes went out. Oh, you're not a sinner? Wow, bro. Interesting. ah. Anyways, let's put that aside. I don't want to sound rude. Neither do I want to. Neither do I want to talk about things that I'm not meant to talk about here. Anyways, I didn't come for this, but when I'm prepared for this, I will come for it. Pastor Iki, yes. So you as a human, you want to tell me that you don't see or a saint. Hmm. Ah, wow. Funny. But anyways, I do not want to sound rude. Like I said earlier, I just want to continue reading my book so I those that are interested to listen and learn from what I'm reading out here. It would continue. But for you, Pastor Ike, I do not want to dive deep into this topic, because if I do, I might end up sounding rude, which I do not want to do, because I respect my fans so much. Thank you. Okay. Oh, wow. The day you gave your life to Jesus, you stopped sinning. And ever since then, you've never committed any sin before. Or you just give your life to Jesus and automatically see yourself as a non-sinner. Wow. Even when you commit sin, you still see yourself as a non-sinner. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that funny? Of course it is. But like I said earlier, Pastor AK, I do not want to dive deep into this, because if I do, I might end up sounding rude, which I do not want to. You understand? I do not want to. I just want to respect the audience, respect my live chat, and move on with what I'm doing here, which is more way important to me than this. So whenever I'm ready for this, I'll come back for it. But for now, let's continue with a woman at point zero. Okay. Okay, went out like flames snuck out in the night, but the moment came when she tightened her lips and swallowed hard, but in vain, for 2 tears stayed behind in her eyes. I saw them drop to her nose and slowly trickle down each side. She hid her face with one hand, pulled out a handkerchief with the other hand, and dabbed her nose. Are you crying, Miss Girl? I asked. No, she said, then hid her handkerchief, swallowed hard, and smiled at me. The night around us was deep, silent, motionless, with not a single sound or movement anywhere. Everything was steeped in an absolute darkness, through which no ray of light penetrated. Far in the sky was neither moon nor sun. My face was turned towards her, and my eyes looked into her eyes, 2 rings of pure white surrounded 2 circles of intense black that looked out at me. As I continued to gaze into them, the white seems to turn even whiter and the black even blacker, as though light as though light flowed through them from some unknown magical source, which was neither on the earth nor in heaven. For the earth was enveloped in cloak of night, and the heavens had no sun nor moon to give them light. I held her, I held her eyes in mind. I held her eyes in mind, took her hand in mine, then feeling of our hands touching was strange. Sudden, it was a feeling that made my body tremble, a deep, distant pleasure, more distant than the age of my remembered life. Wow. Deeper than the consciousness I had carried with me throughout. I could feel it somewhere, like a part of my being which had been born with me when I was born, but had not grown with me when I had grown. Like a part of my like a part of my being that I had once known, but left behind when I was born. When I was born, a cloudy awareness of something that could have been, and yet was never lived. At that moment, a memory came to my mind. My lips opened to speak, but my voice failed to come true. As though no sooner did I remember that I had already forgotten, my heart faltered, stirred by a frightened frenzy, beating over something precious I was on the point of losing, or had just lost forever. My fingers held on the her. Okay, my fingers held onto her. My fingers held onto her hand with such violence that no force on earth, no matter how great, could tear it away from me. After that night, whenever we met, my lips started to say something which no sooner remember I was already forgotten. My heart beats with fear, no, with an emotion resembling fear. I wanted to reach out to her and take her hand, but she would enter the classroom and leave it after the lesson was over without seeming to have noticed my presence. When she happened to look at me, it was always in the same way as she looked at many others. Abishwan, I don't understand. Uh, Abishwan become lesbian. But let's continue, Sha. It was always in the same way as she looked at many others in the people as well. Say yes, I told my girlfriend that I'm now born again. I'm often but I say okay. But it is where Sha. In bed. Before going to sleep, I used to wonder, has Miss Echo forgotten? A moment later, Ophelia would draw her bed close to my ask. Forgotten what? I don't know, Ophelia. You are living in a world of imagination, Feathers. Not at all, Ophelia. It did happen, you know. What happened? She inquired. I tried to explain to her what had happened, but I did not know how to describe it or to be more precise. I found nothing to talk about. It was as if something had happened which I was unable to recall. Which I was unable to recall. Okay, or as if nothing had happened at all. I closed my eyes and tried to bring back the scene slowly. There appeared two circles of intense black surrounded by two rings of pure white. The more I stared into them, the bigger they grew, expanding before my eyes. The black circle kept growing until it reached to the size of the earth, and the white circle expanded into a piercingly white mass, large as the sun. My eyes lost themselves in the black and white until, blinded by their intensity, they could no longer perceive either one or the other. The images before my eyes became confused. I could no longer distinguish between the faces of my father and my mother, my uncle and Mohammed, Ikwa and Wafaya. I opened my eyes wide in panic, as if threatened with blindness. I could see the outline of Wafaya's face in front of me in the darkness. She was still awake, and I heard her say, Fedos, are you in love with Miss Ikwa? It seems Fedos is beginning to fall in love with Miss Ikwa. But that's strange though. Me, I said with amazement, yes, you. Who else then? Never Wafaya. Then why do you talk about her every night? Mom, this story long, sha. Me? Talk about her. That is not true. You always exaggerate, Wafaya. Ms. Igwa is an excellent teacher, she commented. Yes, I agree, but she's a woman. How could I be in love with a woman? There were only few days left to final examination. Wafaya no longer talked to me about her sweetheart, and the night bell no longer rang as early as before. Every night, I would sit up late in the study room with Wafaya and the other girls. Now and then, the superintendent of the boarding house would walk in and inspect the way we studied. So now they are approaching their examination, the final examination. Pastor Eko, my sister, please don't speak to me really as you said, my sister. Okay, let's continue. So the exams was about approaching. It was approaching, and it was about to write the final examination. So we're no longer talk about her sweetheart. Everybody's now minding studies. Everybody's now being serious so that they could pass the examination. So let's see what happened next. She would appear suddenly out of nowhere, and the girl would immediately bend her head over the book again. I like classes and I enjoy studying, despite the unfailing vigilance of the superintendent and other things. When the result of the final exam were announced, I was told I had come I was told I had come out second in school and seventh countrywide. She's a very intelligent girl. For she to come out second in school and seven the whole of the country, she's brilliant. She's really brilliant. Rather, when the result okay, seven in the world and countrywide. On the night when the certificates were distributed, a special ceremony was held for the occasion. The principal called out my name in the big hall, crowded with hundreds of mothers, fathers, and other relatives of the girls. But no one stepped out to take the certificate. Oh, a sudden silence descended on the hall. The principal called out my name a second time. I tried to stand up, but my legs failed me. I called out from my seat. Got up from my seat, present. I saw all heads turned towards me and all eyes staring at my direction. Countless eyes transformed under my gaze into innumerable rings of white surrounding innumerable circles of blacks, which turned into a concerted circular movement to fix their look steadily in my eyes. So now, the final exam was finally over, and now it was time to hand over results. So according to her, she she was called. Others were called. So many parents, you're not responding. Should I leave? Responding to what exactly? I'm doing something different, please, Pastor Ike. I'm doing something very different. I'm not talking about this topic. Like I said earlier, when I'm ready for this topic, I'll come back for it. But for now, I'm doing something different. So, like I was saying, she went to her time to take her results. Her name was called, her name was mentioned, but nobody came up. Nobody came out to take her results. There was so much silence, no relative, no mom, no dad, just there. So she has to be called out herself, and immediately she stood up. Immediately she stood up. There were so many eyes on her, so many eyes on her. That the principal called out in a commanding voice, "Don't reply while seated, stand up." I realized that I was on my feet when the white rings and the black circle moved upward in unison to fasten themselves once more on my eyes. The principal called out again in a loud voice that echoed in my ears louder than my voice I had ever heard in my life before. "Where is your guardian?" Now, the principal asked, "Where is your guardian?" Imagine an orphan who doesn't have a hope. The uncle has gotten married to someone who doesn't like her at all. They just threw her into boarding school to just face like that. She doesn't go home during the midterm breaks or during the holiday. She's just there. So it was time to hand over results, and there's nobody, there's no guidance to at least. But it's fine. Okay. A heavy silence descended on the hall, a silence which seemed to possess a resonance of its own. The air vibrated with a peculiar sound, and the breathing of many chests as a rhythmic tone which reached me at the back of the crowded hall. The heads swung back to their normal position, and there I stood contemplating lines upon lines of blacks sitting upright in their rows. I wrote, two eyes alone fastened themselves upon mine. No matter how far I shifted my gaze or how much I moved my head, they followed me closely, tightened their holds. Everything was now enveloped in a growing darkness, in which I could no longer discern the slightest glimmer of light, except for two jet black eyes, encircled by two rings of dazzling white. The more I gazed into them, the more intense the black and the white became, as though imbued with light from some magical source. For the hall was enveloped in total darkness, and the night outside was like liquid coal. It seems to me as though I reached out in the dark and took her hand, or that she reached out in the dark and took my hand. The sudden contact made my body shiver with a pain so deep it was almost like pleasure, or a pleasure so deep that it burdened on pain. It was remote pleasure buried in such faraway depth that it seems to have arisen a very long time ago, longer than the length of memory, older than the remembered years of life journey, something no sooner remembered and forgotten, as it had happened just once before, only to be lost all time, or as though it had never happened at all. I parted my lips, ready to tell her all, but she said, "Don't say anything, Fedos." She led me by my hand through rows upon row of people until we mounted the platform where the principal was standing. Okay, now what I was trying to say here is that when she stood up and there was nobody to speak for her, there was no guidance, nothing, nobody at all. So someone had to stand up. She looked at the person. I think it was that same Miss Equal. So she looked at nothing. The person just held her and took her. The person just acted like her guardian and took her directly to where she was about to collect her own result. Or she wanted to say something, but the person was like, "No, don't say anything. Headers." You understand? Yeah. So she led me by hands through rows, okay, open rows of people. She took my certificate, then signed her name to acknowledge that she had also been given my certificate of merit. The principal read out the marks I had received in each subject, and I heard a clatter in the hall um, that resembled applause. The principal held out her hand with a box wrapped in a colored paper and tied with a second green ribbon. I tried to stretch out my hand, but it failed to move. Once more, I glimpsed Miss Echo approaching the principal. She took the package from her hand and led me back through the rows of people to where I was sitting before. I sat down, put the certificate on my laps, and placed the brush on top of it. The school years had come to an end. Fathers and guardians arrived to take their girls home. The principal sent a telegram to my uncle, and a few days later he arrived at the school to take me away. I had not seen Miss Equal since the night of the ceremony. That same night, when the light out bell rang, I was unable to sleep. I slipped down to the courtyard and sat there in the dark by myself. Each time I heard a sound coming from some distance away or felt some movement, I looked around me. At one moment, I saw a shape about the size of a person moving near the entrance. I leaped on my feet. My heart beat wildly, and the blood rushed through my head. Should I wait till you finished? How long would the book take before you finish? My regards to this story. Uh, I can wait till I finish. I can't tell. Just I think I'm half of it now, but I'm sure I'm not gonna finish it today. So if I didn't finish it today, I'll continue tomorrow morning when I come live here. So I don't know, but whenever I finish, I will let the audience know, especially those who have been following the story from beginning. Thank you. As I advanced, I realized that my whole body was bathed in sweat, including the roots of my hair and the palms of my hand. I was alone in darkness, and a slight shiver of fear went through me. I called out Miss Iqbal, but all I managed was a mere whisper that failed even to reach my ear. I could hear nothing and my fear increased, but still there was a shape of size of human body looming in the dark. I spoke out in a loud voice, which reached my ear clearly this time. "Who is there?" My own voice awakened me from what appeared to be a dream, like a person talking out loud in sleep. The darkness seemed to to lift slightly, revealing a low on plastered brick. Oh, okay, plastered bricks. Okay, plastered brick wall about the height of an average person. It was a wall which I had seen before, yet for a brief moment I felt as though it had been built that instant. Before leaving school for the last time, I kept looking around me, sweeping walls, windows, doors with my eyes uneasily, expecting something to open suddenly and reveal her eyes. As they looked out at me for a moment, on her hand waving as usual farewell, I slouched on frantically without respite. At every moment, I kept losing hope, only to regain it at an instant later. My eyes shifted restless up and down, to and fro. My chest was heaving with deep emotion. Before we passed through the outer gate, I gasped to my uncle. Please wait for me just one more minute. The next instant, I was following him into the street, and the door had already closed behind us. But I continued to turn round and look back at it for quite a while, as if it was about to swing open again, or as though I had a feeling of sanctity, that someone was standing behind it and getting ready to push it open at any moment. Okay, I'll be stopping here because it's already getting dark, so I had to do some other things. Thank you all for joining my live video. I really appreciate it. So today we just stop at page 36 of this book. Yeah, stop at the page 36. So tomorrow morning I'm going to continue from where we stop until we finish it. So we'll soon be done. Yes, it's very interesting, right? Just hope my audience are learning, because it's a very interesting one. This is a story about a girl who was in prison in Fedus. How she got into the prison and how she was sentenced to death. Yeah, trust me, you're gonna like it. It's a very interesting one. Very, very interesting one. So I'm so happy that you guys joined. Thanks for joining my live. I'm very, very appreciative. I'm happy at the same time. Thank you. I'll be expecting you all tomorrow. Still blessed out there. Do have a great night. I love you all. So see you guys tomorrow. Though, don't forget, I'll be uploading my videos tonight. Yes, because I'm a skit maker. You can call me a comedian. Yes, and a storyteller as well. So this is not the only story I'll be talking about. I just want to start with this one first because today is my first time being live on YouTube. Yeah, so I'm a skit maker and a storyteller. So stay tuned because I'll be telling you guys a whole lot of amazing stories you learned from. Feel free to ask your questions. Feel free to DM me if you have something confusing you. Subscribe to my channel, share my videos, like my videos, and don't forget to watch it to the end. I love you all. Take care. Bye.